What if sound traveled at the speed of light? This question comes from acoustic engineer Dr. Lisa Chang, who asks, if sound waves could propagate at 299,792,458 meters per second instead of their normal 343 meters per second, how would this fundamental change in physics transform human communication, music, and our entire understanding of the world? Let's imagine it's a quiet Thursday morning when the laws of physics suddenly shift. At exactly 9 a.m., every sound wave on Earth begins traveling at light speed instead of its usual leisurely pace. The first thing people would notice is that conversations would become completely impossible in the traditional sense. When you speak to someone standing just 2 meters away, your words would reach them in about 0.000000007 seconds, essentially instantaneously from human perspective. But here's where it gets strange. Your brain and ears are still designed to process sound at normal speeds. The neurological delay in processing what you hear would suddenly become the dominant factor in all acoustic perception. Within the first hour, musicians worldwide would discover that playing instruments has become virtually impossible. A guitar string plucked in New York would be heard simultaneously in Los Angeles, London, and Tokyo. The concept of acoustic space would completely disappear. Every sound on Earth would essentially become part of one giant, instantaneous global symphony of chaos. The most immediate crisis would hit air traffic control. Pilots rely on radio communications that travel at light speed, but they also depend on engine sounds, wind noise, and other acoustic cues that previously had predictable delays. Now, a jet engine's roar would reach ground control at the same instant as radio transmissions, but the human brain's processing delay would create dangerous confusion about timing and distance. But the truly bizarre effects would emerge in everyday life. Thunder and lightning, which normally arrive seconds apart, would now be perfectly synchronized. The crack of thunder would reach your ears at the exact same moment you see the lightning flash, making it impossible to judge the distance of storms. Every thunderclap on Earth would seem to be happening directly overhead. Within a week, humanity would realize that our entire concept of acoustic privacy has vanished. Whispered conversations in boardrooms would be audible to anyone with sensitive equipment anywhere on the planet. The idea of sound being contained within a room or building would become obsolete. Every sneeze, cough, and footstep would propagate instantly across continents. The strangest social consequence would be the death of echo and reverberation. In a cathedral or concert hall, the magnificent acoustic properties that create rich, layered sound experiences would disappear. Sound waves would no longer bounce off walls and return delayed, they would reflect instantly, creating harsh, compressed audio experiences that would make music sound flat and lifeless. But here's where the physics gets really interesting. Animals that depend on echolocation, bats, dolphins, and whales, would face immediate extinction crises. Bats use the delay between their calls and returning echoes to navigate and hunt. With sound traveling at light speed, this biological sonar would become useless, as the returning echo would arrive before the bat's nervous system could even register that it had made the original call. More surprisingly, human speech would evolve rapidly. People would instinctively begin speaking much more slowly and deliberately, because the normal rhythm of conversation would be disrupted by the brain's processing delays. Languages would start developing new grammatical structures designed around the psychological effects of instantaneous sound transmission. After several months, scientists would make a disturbing discovery. The human ear and brain evolved over millions of years to process sound at 343 meters per second, would begin malfunctioning when exposed to light-speed acoustics. People would start experiencing a condition similar to motion sickness, but triggered by sound rather than movement. The most unexpected consequence would be in architecture and urban planning. Cities would need to be completely redesigned because sound pollution would become a global problem rather than a local one. Every car horn in Beijing would be instantly audible in New York. Construction noise in one country would disturb sleep on the opposite side of the planet. But here's the twist that changes everything. After a full year of light-speed sound, physicists would discover that the change wasn't random. The speed of sound had been artificially accelerated by an unknown technology, a massive network of quantum field manipulators hidden throughout Earth's crust by an ancient civilization. These devices had been dormant for millions of years, but climate change and human industrial activity had triggered their activation. The ancient civilization had faced the same environmental crisis that humanity faces now, and they had developed this technology as part of a planetary communication system designed to coordinate global responses to climate disasters. The lightspeed sound wasn't a malfunction, it was an emergency broadcast system. The planet itself was trying to create a global acoustic network that would allow all of humanity to communicate instantaneously during the climate catastrophe. Every sound on Earth had become part of a vast biological internet designed to help our species coordinate survival efforts. The most profound realization would be that the ancient civilization hadn't disappeared, they had evolved beyond individual bodies into a collective acoustic consciousness that existed in the planet's sound waves. They had been waiting millions of years for another intelligent species to trigger their emergency system. The day sound began traveling at light speed would mark humanity's invitation to join a planetary intelligence that had been patiently waiting to help us survive the same crisis that had transformed them eons ago.